All right, what is up, everybody, and welcome back for episode number 41 of Delco Baseball Now. My name is Brendan Ricciardi. I'm joined by Ben Thorpe. And Ben, the vibes will never be worse on a Delco Baseball Now podcast than after this Phillies game.
It is. Last few days have been disastrous. We'll leave it at that. That might be putting it lightly, but yeah, I think we're witnessing like terms of vibes an all time low for this podcast. Hopefully, an all time low.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx ourselves too much here.
I
You
don't
know,
want to know. I don't know want to know what lower is.
no. I mean, it's been a crazy roller coaster of a year just in terms of the teams around here in this area. But I sit here thinking I'm down bad. Meanwhile, you flew to Arizona to watch a loss and lose your phone. So I guess I think you have me beat.
Yeah, that was the like it was. The phone was stolen that on Friday, so we kind of had the whole weekend ahead of us. Then you went out. Then the Phils lost. I got to see Alec Thomas take Craig Kimbrell into the hot tub. That was great. Pretty much like the half inning after I turned to my friend and was like, Bryce Harper's going in the hot tub. Alec Thomas did it, so that was cool. Then you get back and my phone's gone still, and they lose game 6 and 7. So it's been a rough couple days. We got the new phone though. The old one's in like Compton, California now. So whoever has it, count your days. But like I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Oh man, let's take a road trip to California. find
Uh,
your phone.
don't think that's worth it, but
No.
hopefully it comes back here at some point, and then we can warrant a road trip.
All right. Well, we have a lot to talk about with this series. I mean, there's just so many things to talk about. My opening thoughts are pretty much that at the end of the day, like it sounds like I'm a classic Delco dad. Like I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Like last year, like this loss hurt a million times more than last year. Because last year, that was like, the first postseason run in a decade. It was the team that was fun. They weren't supposed to be there. They're playing the death machine known as the Houston Astros.
Mhm.
Like that was just like a like we'll be back. Like this is the beginning of a new era. Now we realized like, oh man, like this year we lost to last year's Phillies. Basically, we lost to the team that snuck in, the team that had nothing to lose, and like that. I think that's what hurts the most.
Yeah, no, I feel like last year is definitely just like they lost and it's like, damn, like party's over. Like this year, like they fell short. It was definitely short of expectations. I know obviously like they weren't going into the playoffs, they weren't like the favorite, but I think around here we all expected another World Series run, and they fell short, and they felt the way they fell short was just like I don't even know, kind of just rolling over. It just I don't
I
know.
mean, like it almost doesn't seem real when you see that Castellanos, Turner, and Harper went, I think, 0 for 23 in the last two games. Like that is just an absurd stat. Like I'm convinced there was a higher power. Like the baseball gods clearly did not like Garrett Stubbs talking about the pool party. I mean, I think that the thing that hurt the most was like the Phillies went from the team that just fed off the bulletin board stuff all year and like punishing anyone that came after them to being the team they hated most, right? They were the team that got cocky. They were the team that thought once it was 2-0, series is over, we're going back to the World Series. And it's funny, like a lot of people, come out in series like hating the Diamondbacks. I have nothing but respect for them. That's a team that
Oh yeah,
plays.
no.
That's the team that played the game right. Great bullpen, clutch hitting. Like I'd say the only thing they really weren't great at is just like hitting for power as a whole. But they did it when they had to. Really well rounded team, but Rangers in four.
Yeah, dude, I don't know, man. They're
I think the
chippy.
Rangers. I think the Rangers win, but I think it's probably in like five or six.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the Rangers have a little bit. I don't know. The firepower's there for the Rangers, but yeah, I nothing but respect for Arizona, man. Like it, they just were a chippy, scrappy. Like went out and won the series. Like you gotta respect that, I think. And I don't know, good for them. I'm honestly gonna be rooting for them. And yeah, on the terms of like the bulletin board material, like love Garrett Stubbs as like a chief vibes officer, but like, dude, like you went a little too far there. I think you gave them something to work with. And, you know, I don't think you go and like you should go and put that out there. Like it's just it's a bad look. It's a bad
That
look.
team,
It's not what you
that
want.
team was dead after game two, and you brought
Hmm.
them back into it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. You just
it, that series like had absolutely no juice through the first two games,
Mhm.
and then that happened. Um, yeah, it's just like that. I think that was, I mean, the biggest takeaway out of this was that the offense went completely ghost mode. I know a lot of people are pissed at Craig Kimbrell. I'm obviously one of them, but I don't think Thompson had a terrible series. But going back to him in that game was bad. But the issue was that they took Sanchez out way too early, and that made him have to use everybody else. And then he realizes like, oh crap, like it's the eighth inning, and all I've left is Kimbrel and what I guess like Lorenzen at that point. So it's everyone's to crush him for having Kimbrel out there. I think it's more just like how
Yeah.
he got to that point in the first place.
I mean, and so just it's going to be hard to get through a playoff series when you have two completely reliable relief pitchers because like listen, you're not going to Wheeler can go out and give you 7. Nola is capable of that. He did it once, didn't do it the other time. And then you got guys that like aren't going that far and it's just like and yeah, I think like Christopher Sanchez probably came out a little bit early, but when you have a bullpen that's a lot of guys are shaky going into the series, it's not really like you're making the wrong decision. It's just there's no right decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I think bullpen will be a big part of the offseason plans. I have a
100%.
little bullet point that we'll talk about at the end with some options there. But yeah, it's too early for us to kind of put in context like where this ranks on like Philadelphia sports heartbreaks. I see people like trying to compare it to like last year's Super Bowl, try and compare it to last year's World Series, all that. Like that's something that I think you have to let like the emotion kind of like set aside first. But I will say, when it comes to Phillies playoff runs, like when the Eagles lost the Super Bowl, I was, crushed like everybody else.
Mhm.
But there's something about the fact that like a Phillies playoff run is like a month. Like that's like the course of like all of October. Like you're in, you're at war for a long time. The Eagles like they crushed the Giants. They beat a depleted Niners team, and all of a sudden you look up and you're in the Super Bowl. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a run. It feels like all right, like we slept walk through the NFC and then we lost a heartbreaker to one of the best quarterbacks ever. This is just like it was a golden opportunity gone to waste, and
Mhm.
you really never know. Like you can say we'll be back all we want. They
You never
probably
know.
will be back in the playoffs, but like the Braves will be always around. The Dodgers won't sit around and suck like they did this year forever. Like when you have that opportunity, you got to take it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like honestly for me, I'm not even like heartbroken. Like it's a weird way to put it. This feels like one of the playoff losses the Sixers had, where you get done, and you're just like what the hell, man? Like it was there, and they just like I don't know, kind of just screwed around and let it slip through their hands. It feels more like that, where you leave like pissed off as opposed to like heartbroken. Like last year was heartbreaking. Super Bowl was heartbreaking. This one was just kind of like I'm not heartbroken. I'm just like
What the hell?
yeah,
Like
yeah, like, what are we doing, man? Like,
I would
how did
compare
this
it.
even happen?
I'd compare it to the year they lost to the Hawks. That would be
Yes,
like
yes, yeah, it's exactly that.
it's like
That
losing to the
was
Celtics, like, you had the 3-2 series lead, but, like, obviously, that's a great team. It's not as embarrassing, like, to lose to a team that's better than you, but, like,
yeah,
when we lost to the Hawks, that was like the are we serious right now? Like, that's what we're,
yeah, it was get through these guys and we're golden,
yeah.
and they didn't. It's I don't know. It's just infuriating.
I mean, it's kind of depressing. Like there are very few people I come out of this series being like happy with what we saw across. I mean,
Mhm,
Brandon Marsh was one. Like I felt like he was the guy, really one of the only guys giving good at bats through games 1 to 7. Like
100%.
he was just. I think he should have moved up at some point. Hoffman, you couldn't have asked someone to respond better after he let up that Austin Riley homer. He was great the rest of the series after that, same with Alvarado. But I mean, just like the lineup as a whole, like I don't know how Castellanos went from the best hitter in the world in the NLDS to the absolute worst hitter in the world in the next round. And that's no other sport can do that. Like no quarterback is going to throw for 505 touchdowns and then the next week like throw 8 interceptions. Like that's pretty much the equivalent.
Yeah, and it's the thing I kind of noticed, and I feel like the offense went cold in a very similar way this year as they did last year, where like the Astros started they had a bullpen full of dudes that had like fastballs a really good rise to them, and they just put them up in the zone and blow them by. This team, I feel like bullpen full of just sliders that really tunneled well with their fastballs, and it was the same type of thing. Like they, the opposing pitching staff found something that was able to beat the Phillies hitters, and the Phillies hitters were never able to adjust. And for like me, that I don't know, I feel like that falls obviously like the players are the guys out there and they have to do it, but part of that I think also falls on coaching. Like I think you got to look at whoever's kind of doing all the hitting staff, and ask, how are you not able to help these guys adjust at all?
Yeah, yeah, and credit to Arizona for realizing like, hey, we're just not going to give Schwarber and Harper anything to hit, and
Oh, 100%.
we're going to let the rest of the order take them. And you can tell that. I mean, one of the reasons the Phillies lost the series was because the Diamondbacks played winning baseball on offense. The Phillies, every single player tried to be the hero, and in games where you're down like 4-1, they were still taking like solo home run swings, and it's like, listen, guys, like a single steal, ground out sac fly is the same amount of runs as a solo homer. And there was just so many guys, like when they would swing, you could see them pulling their head off.
Mhm.
Castellanos was the best example, but I think Bryce and Schwarber kind of started to get impatient with the fact they weren't getting anything to hit, because they realized like, hey, like nobody behind us is hitting, so we kind of have to chase, like, or else we're not getting anything across.
Yeah, and these guys like the whole year, they've been just all gas, no brakes. Like they're not a team that chips away. And while that like gets you there, like they're going for the home run because this team works where like one dude hits the solo bomb and everyone just bang. Like it's the switch flips. But I think at the same time that also was what led to kind of their demise, was because everyone was trying to be the guy to get everyone going with, that big home run, that big hit. And instead of chipping away, they kind of did that, and just the big hit never came.
Yeah, and that approach works when your pitching staff is dealing, like when they played the
Yeah.
Braves and won that Strider game where they I think it was they won 3-1 and they hit three solo homers to clinch the series. It's like, all right, well then, like this Phillies team, like when it comes to, they responded well sometimes when they'd lose, like come back the next game. But their issue was if they got down early in a game, I'd never seen a 2 or 3 run lead feel like 20 like that. Like that
Oh
game, I mean,
yeah.
people were leaving the bar in like the sixth or seventh inning of a game 7 in the NLCS, because it's like they're not coming back. Like we knew, you can hold out hope all you want, like they weren't coming back.
Yeah, that was, I mean, once it hit like when they made it like 3-2, it felt like 5-2, 6-2. Like I don't know. It was a weird, and I think that part of that's probably because we'd seen them really struggle to get runs across in the games before that. But yeah, it really just, I don't know. The small leads felt a lot bigger.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can talk a little bit about like the offseason plans and whatnot. I mean, the two looming questions that are on everybody's mind is what happens with Aaron Nola and what happens with Reese Hoskins. So we'll start with Reese first, just because he's a guy that I truly feel terrible for, because he put his heart and soul into that rehab. He gets hurt right going into a contract year
Mhm.
after coming off of a great playoff run on a team built to win, in what he knew, no matter what, like even if he was healthy this year, could have been his last year in Philly. And they came one game away from him being able to step on the field again. Like that's just a heartbreaker.
Yeah, man, and it's yeah, that's the same thing. Like loved Reese, put his heart and soul into it, but honestly, like looking up the next year, I don't really see a spot for him in the lineup unless Harper insists on going back to the outfield, which honestly I don't think he will. I think he's a first baseman from here on out. Then from there, you're looking at, all right, like either you're putting someone like Rojas down in AAA, or you're getting rid of Schwarber or Castellanos. Like you're gonna have to get rid of someone who like is kind of locked in here for at least next year in order to make him fit. And I think between that and probably still, I think someone still will pay a decent amount of money for him. I don't see him back.
Yeah. Yeah. For Reese, I think it's going to come down to like the Phillies will not be the highest bidder unless
Mhm.
it's a 1 year deal, because like, a team is going to offer him multi years. And if he wants to stay, he can stay. Because I think if Harper, I think what could end up working is if they were to tell Harper like, hey, we want you in the outfield sometimes, we want you at first sometimes. Kind of make like a rotation between Reese, Schwarber, and Harper at like first DH in the outfield kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like,
that
you
could
know,
work.
because like Schwarber, I'm fine with Schwarber playing left some games in the regular season. Just don't have him out there in the playoffs, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think no matter what, I think Rojas starts in AAA. I think this postseason run just exposed him for what he couldn't do at the plate. Like he was just overmatched at all times. The Mike Trout rumors are going to pick up steam, especially if Otani leaves the Angels, which
Mhm.
probably will. People are going to build their trade packages up. I actually don't think it's unrealistic that a trade could happen solely because of what the Phillies have. Like they have Marsh, they have Rojas, Pache, and Justin Crawford down in the minors. Like if the Angels' goal is to get back young replacements for him, the Phillies are a potential match in that regard.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it'd be interesting to see what like a trade package for Mike Trout would look like. And I think the other question is he's like generally is he still capable of playing center field and playing center field consistently without getting hurt? Because the past few years has not gone well for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I think deal I would say Crawford is 100% in it. I would probably
Mhm.
say Rojas or Marsh. I mean, they had Marsh in their system. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but one of them is gone. I hate to say it, but I just have a feeling Stott would be someone they would ask for. You want a young player that's also ready to play, in the majors as
Yeah.
well. I would imagine. See, I would think they would want Mick Abel because Andrew Painter, like, why would you want to trade for a guy that just got Tommy John? It's a little risky.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I'm sure. I mean, if you're the Phillies, like you have to at least ask what the price is because the Angels are
Yeah.
also very dumb and they could just give him up for something that's less than what he's actually worth just because they're stupid. But the calls will be made. Unfortunately, 30 other teams will also be making calls. Um, Another interesting question. I don't think they would trade him here. Is that Juan Soto could be on the move with the Padres as well. And it's the same thing. It's like somebody would have to, not be here next year. It'd probably be like Rojas or Marsh or something. But I mean, at this point, I don't know what like the fix is because they spent money on the lineup and they all went cold.
Yeah, and I wish I had a answer too, but like I mean, guys like Trout and Soto, you definitely have to ask the price on. A guy like Bryson Stott to me would be a deal breaker. I think from the even I get he went cold in the NLCS, but the improvement he showed this year, I think that's a dude that you should stick with. Rojas, like I like him. I think there's a lot of promise. I think he was up early, and that's why he struggled so much. It's not going to kill me if he's part of the package. Same with Marsh, Pache, Crawford. I also really like Marsh, like Pache and Crawford. Would love to see what Crawford becomes. Whatever. I don't know. I mean, fitting a guy like that into a lineup never hurts. But also, I think there's got to be just a little bit of a maybe a change of approach, especially in the playoffs. Like, see if we can like I don't know, like we were talking about, just kind of start to patch stuff together a little more. Like maybe put together better at bats. I don't know how that's done. But yeah,
Last thing I'll say on that is I would move Stott if it was in a Soto trade, but not Trout, just because Soto's so much younger. Like
yeah, that's fair.
you could have him for a long time. Trout, it's like if he gets banged up and Stott turned into like a perennial Gold Glove and All Star second baseman, then it's like what the hell are we doing? But yeah, I know it's a big offseason for Dave. I think my dream acquisition is Josh Hader because he's a free agent, so they wouldn't have to trade anything to get him. And if you can combine him with Alvarado, good luck to any team they're facing that has like good lefties in their order because at that point, like you the Phillies need a true closer. I think Alvarado, I love him. I love him as a leverage guy, but like sometimes he just scares the hell out of me as a closer. Like he gets too wild, and like you need if there's ever any game where he's just out of control wild, like you need to have more time after that. I like just putting him against the best lefty in the middle, seventh, eighth, whatever that is. But I think Hader would be a dream come true here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the getting a designated closer, and it's tough because like you look at the teams that have that guy, and it's like the only one really available is Josh Hader, and then from there, you're either going to have to hope that like someone steps into that role And really, we've seen, I mean, over the years, we've seen Alvarado step in and not really do it. Sir Anthony hasn't really been able to do. He's been able to do it at times, but not really. Kimbrel was able to do it for a little bit and then didn't. The really only the only dude that like we haven't seen fail in that role is Orion Kerkering, who like again he's another dude who came up really early and he kind of got hit around a little bit. So like we're gonna have to see what his confidence is like going in. I think he has the stuff to do it. I mean he's nasty, but I don't know if he's going to be ready for that come next year. So a dude like Hader's, yeah, a place where I think again like you got to at least throw him an offer and see where that ends up.
Oh, I know the last, couple NLCS appearances for Kerkering where obviously wants to forget, but I have so much optimism about him. Like he's 22 years old,
Oh
and
yeah, me too.
I think he's one of those guys who has the definition of, hey, like I have the stuff. Now I need to learn how to use it because teams were starting to realize like, hey, like you're throwing sliders 90% of the time. We're just going to sit on it. Like the dude throws 98, like maybe mix
Mhm.
in some more fastballs. Obviously that's not his decision, but I mean, I believe this guy has a chance to be the Phillies closer of the future at some point. I mean, 22 years old, like the dude was in low A this year. I can't, criticize Thompson because I was asking him to get the high leverage innings as well. He earned the right to, and it just didn't
Yeah.
work out. And I think that people are crushing Rob like, oh, you can't put a rookie in this spot. It's like, dude, like he earned it. Sir Anthony wasn't doing much better. I don't really know. Like I think Thompson was a scapegoat for everything outside of Kimbrel.
Yeah, and that was like my question to anyone bashing Thompson, especially regarding the bullpen, is what else was he going to do? What like who? We don't have some magical dude that's the best in the world sitting on our bullpen that could have possibly been Kerkering, and he tried it and it didn't work. Like, it's what did you want him to do? He managed that bullpen as well as he could, I think.
Yeah. I mean, people need to really like take a look at things from, like the bigger picture. Like
Mhm.
Rob came here for a struggling team with I don't even want to say his name, Joe Girardi. Feels like ages ago he was here, but like he came from a team that had, no chemistry, no vibes, whatever, missed the playoffs 10 years in a row. And in his 2 years made it to the World Series and then NLCS game 7. Like I think people, every manager is going to make decisions to nitpick. I think that if he gets a better bullpen this year, like honestly, I think last year, like they had some guys like Bellotti that they could throw in there, like Brogdon. They still didn't really have that true closer. I think this team's a strong bullpen and like you said, better approaches from the offense. Like you can't just try and live and die by the home run in the playoffs. It just doesn't work unless you somehow stay hot for the whole postseason.
Yeah, and that's as a manager in the postseason, like it's a weird way, but like the only way your moves aren't going to get criticized is if they work out. It's not, and we don't. It's a very like result driven type of thing of like that approval rating. And I don't know. I thought he did what he could, and at some point, it's also on the players to execute.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Let's see. So the last of like that's the main topics is Aaron Nola. I mean, he's obviously a free agent. He seemed like he really wanted to come back. I think the Phillies and him are going to work something out. I do, and I think that's going to be something where the Phillies realize like, hey, like Nola has his ups and downs. He can be frustrating sometimes. He had a rough start in Game 6, but he had 3 incredible starts. It's more one of the things where you got to look around and be like, hey, like who out there is a better option? Like, Blake Snell would probably be an upgrade, but who knows if he wants to come here? He'd 100% cost more after the season he had this year. Like, you got to look around and say, like, out of free agents, like, there's really not too much of an upgrade in anybody else you'd have to trade people for.
Yeah, that's Blake Snell, like great pitcher, but he kind of has the potential to be just as frustrating, if not more, than Nola. I mean, we've seen him when he's up, we've seen him when he's down. He's going to cost a lot of money coming off of this year. I agree that I think the Phillies and Aaron will work something out. Just because I think in the long run, for both sides, it's going to be the best option. I'm sure there are some other teams that are going to offer him more money, but are they really going to be as competitive? I don't know. I think like the only other dude I can think of, and I'm pretty sure this is a this would have to be a trade is like Glasnow from the Rays.
Mhm.
That might be the only other dude that's like, because I'm pretty sure he's on the market. So that could be a guy. I don't really know who else is on the
So
market
I
like
just
that.
pulled up the starting pitcher free agent. So obviously Otani is going to. I guess he had probably at this point already got Tommy John, so he's probably not going to pitch next season. Who knows if he's even going to be a starter, reliever, whatever.
Yeah.
Noah's up there. Blake Snell, Sonny Gray is interesting, but
Mm.
he's 34 years old. Like I'd be fine if if Noah left, like you sign him to like 3 years. Jordan Montgomery is a free agent, but at this point, you got to think Texas throws the bag at him, like to keep him.
Probably, yeah.
I mean,
Or
Kershaw's
someone.
left. Marcus Stroman would not be a terrible option. Just looking around, Charlie Morton's a free agent. Kyle Hendricks. There's just like,
I don't hear anyone better than Nola, really.
that's the main point. And in
Yeah.
parentheses, they have everybody's WAR, and Nola is number 2 behind Otani. So at this point,
Yeah.
it seemed like the
Even
issue
ahead of Snell?
that he was, yeah.
Wow. That's weird.
It's because Snell is a stud, but he didn't go deep into games.
Yeah.
He'd throw like 6 innings with 1 or 2 runs every single game, and that was it. Like, um,
Makes sense.
yeah, yeah. But I think I lost my main train of thought. Oh yeah, no. So before the season, it seemed like apparently Nola wanted an 8-year deal, and the Phillies only wanted to give him 5 or 6. And I mean, I think that giving him an 8-year deal would be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Personally, I think if you can convince him to do 5 or 6 and add a little more per year, then that's probably what would get him to stay. But I think it's a lot more likely that he's here than Hoskins is.
I agree. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think also after the year he had, granted, very up and down and left with a pretty bad taste. I don't know. He could be feeling a little bit less about his contract. I would assume he comes out and asks for 8. I don't know that there's a team in the league that will give him 8 unless you're looking at like I don't know someone with just money to throw around and a real need at starting pitcher.
Yeah,
Who
I mean,
that would
the
be?
Padres could be a fit if they trade Soto because then they have some payroll open up. He could
Mhm.
go play with his brother. He could be in the warm weather. Like I could see that being an option. He feels like such a St. Louis Cardinal too that it just like I don't know if they give him eight
Yeah.
years, but like just his vibe, the personality being in that
I don't
climate.
even know what kind of situation St. Louis is in though. Like, are they gonna go after a guy like that?
Probably not. That's why I
Yeah.
don't think it would work. But yeah, that's oh man, that's pretty much a wrap on the Phils. I mean, it's going to take a little bit for us to appreciate like what this whole season gave us. Like obviously right now the bad times outweigh the good, but like we'll look back on pounding the Braves again. There's obviously like the standing ovation. Like there are good moments from this year, but until they get back, until spring training starts, like there's still going to be a sour taste in the mouth.
Yeah. I agree. It was listen, like the obviously when you have a team as good as this, you're kind of thinking championship or bust. But as far as they got, looking like only 4 teams make it this far. So it was, and they finished as one of the best 4 teams in the league. Obviously, it wasn't the best one, but still overall pretty good year. A lot of good moments, stuff to build on, stuff to learn, and opportunities to get better. So, again, like bad taste in the mouth until spring, but hopefully everyone uses that and comes back even better next year.
Yeah, I mean the last words I'll say is the window's not closed.
Nope.
2011, like when they got knocked out by the Cardinals, we knew some people, some faces were going to be gone. Jason Worth left. Like we knew the aces were getting older. Like Howard tore his Achilles. Like that was rock bottom.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
this is just, it's frustrating, but hopefully it kind of is like the slap in the face. Like I'm sure after the World Series was like appreciate how far we came this year. This year was like just like, God damn it.
Yeah, I agree. I think next year is going to be the best, or I guess probably the last chance, like this main core, because you're going to look at like Schwarber's probably gone, Castellanos is probably gone. I don't know who other contracts are up, but next year will kind of be this Phillies team as we know it, probably the last run for them.
All right. Well, we saved the good news for the end of the show. We got a couple of commitments from some of our Delco High School guys. Usually we try and go order in in order of the age. So we'll start with high school, college, pro, whatever. But we got our college commitments here, and we got to start with the biggest one of all. Strath Haven's Luke D'Ancona is headed to the ACC. He will be a Boston College Eagle. Got to see him start a state championship game this year. He let up 3 runs in the first, man, but he settled in. And for a sophomore on that stage to be able to go after those 3 in the first, I think he went 4 2/3 total with only those 3 runs allowed. So you could tell the composure. I think he in that game he was around 86. I've seen him somewhere around 90 at this point, and it's not very often we get Central League guys in the ACC. We had Zapito last year, but it's as a whole, it's still very rare in the Central League.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the Central League / like Delco pitching, it's coming along, and Luke's a dude, man. Like watching him pitch the state final was incredible. I saw a couple other really good starts out of him in the playoff run, like just an absolute dude. I think he's been up to like 90, 91 this summer, I think I saw on Twitter. But especially like at his height with kind of his pitchability, the composure he pitches with at his age, like that's a really good get for Boston College.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys where he's kind of lanky, so he's still got plenty of room
Oh
to
yeah.
to fill out that frame. And he kind of mechanic wise kind of reminds me of Scherzer, the way he kind of like comes above like his head with the ball, and it's just everything's just so free and easy. Like it's all just very fluid. He's just got that effortless zip. And I remember
Mhm.
this was back in the winter. I was home for winter break. And it's half nostalgia, half just to get work in. I'd text Feely and he'd tell me to come to On Deck and hit BP with their team. Also, because I knew I'd be covering them, so it was good to meet guys. And Feely was like giddy when he was telling me about D'Ancona because they were having their pitchers throw bullpens, and he's like, come up, like you have to watch this kid. And the fastball was jumping, but it was the slider that I was like, how old is this kid? He's like, he's a sophomore. I'm like, he's got a bright future here.
Yeah, no, I cannot wait to see what he's like capable of doing when he's like a senior, dude. He's gonna
Yeah.
be unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, and this is his staff now. Now that
Yeah.
Pac's up at Penn State. Actually, I know Pac tried out for the club team. He either made it or is working with varsity. So either way, we'll get some updates there. But yeah, I mean, great season from Luke. 2.41 ERA, 75 Ks in 58 innings is very impressive as well. And now he'll have 2 more years before he heads to Boston College. They had a solid year. They were 37 and 20, 16 and 14 in the ACC. Their coach actually just left for Penn State, which is kind of a funny small world thing. But
Yeah.
it's his staff now, and you'd probably have to argue that at this point. I mean, I think in the Central League, him and recently decommitted from Lehigh, Van Wilner are probably like the top 2 arms going into the year, I would think.
Yeah, I'd imagine be those 2, and then I mean a few other really good ones too. I think we'll get to.
Yeah, we're
We'll
about to
get
talk
to
about one of them. Yeah.
yeah, talk about one of them, and then I'm trying to think who else, but yeah, I would assume like those 2 are probably the top 2.
Jake Friel was one guy. He was like
Yeah.
sidearm lefty from Stoga. I think Stoga. And I remember he committed earlier in the year. But yeah, congrats to Luke. Very happy for him. We'll definitely be making it out to the Strath Haven games this year. We go from my alma mater to yours. We got Sean Williams from Springfield. He's going to Seton Hill, not Seton Hall, Seton Hill. They are in the PSAC West. So I don't know exactly where it is, but it's on the western side of the state. But dude, I don't know if you knew this, but they absolutely ran the PSAC West. Like I don't know how many teams can say that they went in their conference 26 and 2.
Wow.
That's insane. I don't care
Yeah,
what level you are. I don't care what conference you're in. 26 and 2 in your conference games is nuts.
that's insane. And Seton Hill's been a really good PSAC program for a while, even since like when I was looking to play college ball, like they were top of the top. But man, that's like just kind of unheard of dominance. It's a really good program. Shout out to Sean for getting out there and playing for them. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, unfortunately, his stats are private on Game Changer, so I don't have anything more to share about that. But it's a great get. Any PSAC is just like it's probably one of the best Division II conferences in the country. Like you
Yeah.
think, like the Conference of the Carolinas, where like Greenville is and stuff. Like that's got to be up there. But I don't have too much to add unless you've seen him pitch. Because without stats or having him seen in person, I'm not just gonna like talk just to talk. Like I really don't have much more to say about him. But congrats.
Yeah, dude, man. Shout out to you, Sean. That was I don't think I've seen him pitch. Obviously, hopefully Springfield gets a little bit better this year and I can go out to some of these games, but and see him at least. But yeah, dude, that's awesome. Like anytime you commit to a PSAC school, from anywhere that's a huge deal.
I feel like we'll see him in the Delco League this summer. I think it's a good bet.
Yeah,
They're already being committed. I don't think we'll see Luke yet, just because he'll probably play travel ball going into senior year, then after that next summer. But all right, we got one more here, and I have a funny connection with this guy. So his name's Mick Brunelli. He's a Harriton guy. He's committed to Del Val now. I actually coached him in a Phillies baseball camp when he was. I mean, he probably had to be 14, maybe 14. I was still either a freshman or sophomore in college, and he was just a funny kid. I just remember he was always just cracking me up. And I remember this season there was another kid on Harriton named Zayden Martin who had a good year, who was also in that camp group. And I remember seeing both their names pop up, and I'm like, God damn, I'm old. That was pretty much my main takeaway.
Hey, that's actually kind of a funny backstory, though.
It is, because I wonder if he has any idea that I'm the one who runs this account or website. He's probably seen my name, but I don't know if he knew Coach Brendan was the same person as the ones who run this. But yeah, congrats to Mick. There was another guy. Who was it? Someone just committed to Del Val within the last year or so. I want to say it was a kid from Pencrest. I think his last name was Koenig. Look him up. I think his name's Jacob Koenig. He was a Pencrest guy. I remember writing about him as well. Seems like there's a couple guys from around here that have played there or do play there right now. I don't know too much about them. Are they in PA?
They're in the MAC.
Okay, yeah,
they're in the MAC.
They're in. They are based out of Doylestown. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking up their schedule right now just to see what kind of teams they play. I actually made the mistake that I made the post. I thought they were called the Rams because I look and I just see the logo. The Aggies, yeah. But that looks close enough that I still don't feel bad about it.
Don't know what an Aggie is, so that was off a picture. Definitely.
Yeah. Also, they're in the MAC Freedom.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, congrats to Mick though. Hopefully, I'll see him at a Harriton game this year and see if he remembers me from those camps back in the day where they used to make us wear long Phillies pants when it was 100 degrees out on the turf at Carroll.
That's no fun.
It was just for the optics. It's what the parents signed up for. I'm like, I don't think they care if you're in shorts.
That's really rough.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to bring it into this episode here. I think we'll probably take a little bit of a break just because there's not really much to talk about outside of commitments, but we plan to do a lot of interviews this offseason with whether it be pro guys, college guys, high school, probably in that order, just because the pro guys go to spring training first, then the college guys season start, and then the high school guys will have a little bit more time. But I'm excited. There's a lot of interviews, and, since not to toot our own horns, but nobody from our area is really doing this kind of stuff. So I'm excited for these guys to get to kind of share their stories.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's definitely stay tuned for some I would say some really cool content coming.
I want to get a Kevin McGonigal interview. I think getting him on the show would be really cool. I know that, before the draft was obviously he's got a million people wanting to talk to him.
Yeah.
After the draft, you're down playing in Lakeland, there's not much to do. But I think you get the best conversations from guys when they're, home for their off season, because it's they go to train, they're there for 3-4 hours, whatever, then they go home and play video games because they have nothing else to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. It'll be good to get it's gonna be good to get a lot of these guys out here and kind of on the podcast and talking.
All right, well, if you guys are still listening at this point, you are sickos because you made it through the Phillies part of the program, which we appreciate. I personally would not have listened to this episode just based on not wanting to. I haven't listened to any podcasts that have anything to do with the Phillies, even pardon my take at this point, just because I don't want to hear about it. But as always, thank you all for tuning in. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram at Delco Baseball, as well as Facebook. You can just find Delco Baseball now. If you haven't already, subscribe on YouTube, and we will see you next time.